Yo guys, it's JJ here. Welcome back to another video, and of course by the title of the video, I'm going to be walking you through a lush and ambient beat I made it in the likes of Gunner and Sahbabii. But before we get into the video, first of all, I've got the AC blasting in the back. I'm not in my studio, so ignore the noise. And second of all, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I've got a free kit coming for you guys, so to be up to date, of course stay tuned with the channel, and my Instagram will be in the link below. But with all that being said, roll the trailer. And of course, there you have it guys, coming to you 1st of August. But not to waste any more time, let's just jump into the video. So first thing I actually did, and trust me when I say trust the process, because this whole beat and sample got mixed loads and it sounds really good in the end. The first thing I did, got Omnisphere, got myself a preset called Retrospective Piano Arpeggio, and I actually just bumped into the preset. It just sounded dope, so I thought let me make a beat. And from looking at the pattern, it's very simple, straightforward. It's essentially a 2-bar that repeats over, but with a slight bit of variation. And to break down the two main chords, if we look at these ones over here, first of all, this right hand chord is just a major chord, very simple and straightforward. But for the left chord, as we can see, the very first one, if I placed a G here, it would have actually been just a normal triad, but I removed the middle note, place the third note of course, and then I make another triad on top of it, so I essentially have my minor triad over here with a root note of E. And then these two notes were just good in transition, to be honest, so I placed them there. And same applies up here for the G and the F sharp. So sometimes it's not really about music theory, it's just what sounds good to ear. And the last thing I actually did, and without further ado, this is what the melody sounds like. And there we have it. So the first thing I did was get myself an instance of gross beat, putting on the slow triplet preset, which is found of course in the monetary section. And as we can see here, that's what gives it that nice unique bounce. However, because of this, I had to add a sound shifter taking up 5 semitones to return it back to the scale which it was originally in, which was the E minor. Then on top of that, I added an EQ to cut off all the lows, some Soothe 2 just to act as a compressor, and then of course some Valhalla Vintage Verb just to add some ambience and reverb. Next up, we got have an instance of Expand 2, and the preset I use is called Airy Sweeper, as we can see from the soft leads bank. And from looking at the pattern, the whole point of it was just to add like a nice little accent. So I got it playing on the E and of course on the B, and all I do is just copy and paste it, of course, to make it a full 8-bar. And last but not least, if we look carefully, as you can see from the B and the E, these notes have just been recycled but shifted in different places in the beat, just to add a bit of variation and just complement the whole melody. So without further ado, this is what the lead sounds like. And there we have it. First things first, I got myself an EQ of course for the soft lead, and I just took out all these lows and a few of the highs. Then of course got myself a shaper box and added this nice little panning effect just to give the sample a bit of movement. And then last but not least, some Valhalla Vintage Verb just to add the ambience and the reverb that we all need. And if we look at the stereo separation here, I stereo separated it around 70% to really widen the sound. And then next up, I got myself another instance of Omnisphere. However, I am using a preset called the Ambient Piano, of course found in the keyboards bank. And the reason I use this preset is because honestly, if you're making some ambient or lush beats, it really goes a long way to the sound. It sounds super dope. So of course, from looking at the pattern, I got myself a nice little bounce going here following this F sharp, G, and then back into a D, and I just copy and paste it. And all of these notes are of course part of the main melody that I showed you at the very beginning. And then the final thing I did, clicked Alt R yet again, just to randomize the velocities. So this is what the ambient piano sounds like. And there we have it. And for the effects, it was simple and straightforward. Just whacked an EQ to cut off all the unwanted lows. And of course a Valhalla Vintage Verb. But as you can see from the preset I made here, it's a very heavy reverb one, just to really add that ambient and that lush feel we're going for. And of course, stereo separation was just around 40%. So if you have your headphones on, you can really hear this. Next up, we also have a pad from Analog Lab 5, and it's called Starship. And all I actually did was just copy and paste the main melody progression and just kept it very simple in terms of like stabby notes. As you can see here, they just cut off, they don't really continue. And without further ado, ado, this is what the pad layer sounds like. And there we have it, sounding very nice, ambient and lush, especially if you know Gunner and Sahbabii. Now, last but not least, one of my favorite bass presets, and we all know it if you watch my videos, I am using a source bass, yet again from Analog Lab 5, which is from the bank called Artillery, made by Max Shooter 49 and a guy called Easy A. You should know them both by now if you're producing, because they're pretty big. And of course, looking at the bass pattern is very simple, following the main chord progression, where I just go from an E to a G, and just keeping it like that. And now the final thing I actually did before I played the whole pattern, I rendered out the whole sound in a loop. I took it up by 2 semitones, taking it from an E minor to an F sharp minor, and I reduced the BPM from 140 to 120, slowing the sample down a bit. And without further ado, this is what the full sample sounds like for Sahbabii and Gunner. And there we have it, folks, sounding very nice, lush and ambient, super dope melody, honestly. And now time to break down the drum pattern. And first of all, we got ourselves a nice simple clap pattern using the basic Lex Luger clap. And as you can see, it just repeats itself every 1 bar, simple straightforward pattern, we all know and love it. And next up, of course, we got ourselves the hi-hat pattern. It's a nice little bounce of not going here, and it's essentially just a 4 bar that loops over, but let me break it down. So if we focus in on this 4 bar here, first of all, I went into the magnet tool, went on the 3rd step, and from what you can see here, I've got myself a nice little bounce going, create this nice little roll, then just keeping it spacious, to be honest. It's really important keeping it spacious, as you guys can see here and here. Giving it a lot of space also really helps the artist, of course, giving him room to do his thing, especially if it's Sahbabii and Gunner. Then I kind of copied this pattern over, but I changed this roll rather than having this roll. And then again, I have this new roll inserted here with a nice little bit of a velocity change, rather than having this pattern end off the hi-hats. And there you guys have it. It's a bit complicated, but to be honest, the best way to get better with hi-hats, just rinse and repeat, practice, and you'll actually get there. And without further ado, this is what the hi-hats and the claps sound like. And there you have it. And now, of course, moving into the 808s and the kick. First of all, with the 808, we are using a nice little spin. And of course, because the sample got pitched up by 2 semitones, the whole melody and the 808, of course, has to get shifted up. So we begin with the F sharp, and I take it up to an A. Then, of course, repeating it again, but for the bit of variation, I add in this extra note for that little bit of bounce. And as for the kick pattern, it's essentially the exact same kick pattern as the 808, except it's all kept on the root note of C to ensure the kick just doesn't sound off. Before I play you the kick in the 808, something I want to reinforce, and I say it in every video, is to max your velocities out. And the way you can do this, click Control A, hold on the scroller on your mouse, and then drag it all the way up, as you can see. And the reason I do this is because, first of all, your 808s and your kicks, if you max their velocities out, it really creates a nice punch in the mix. Sounds really good for artists that want to go on your beat, and it just, again, adds that hip-hop aesthetic. So without further ado, this is what the 808s and the kicks sound like. And there we have it. And last but not least, we've got 2 more sounds, one being an open hat, of course, and it just repeats itself every 4 bar at the very beginning hit, as we can see. And then next up, we got ourselves a nice little perk, of course, from the Max Shooter kit. It's a stutter perk, and it just comes in the very beginning of every 4 bar. So without further ado, this is what a beat for Sahbabii and Gunner sounds like. And there you have it, folks. And now, of course, time to break down the structure of the whole beat. And to start it all off, looking at the intro, it's just a nice little 8 bar of the main melody playing alongside the bass. Then looking at the chorus, it's just 2 8 bars. The first one just being the main melody alongside the pad, as you can see, with all the essential drums and the open hat. But then for the second half, I introduced, of course, those nice ambient keys from the piano, and I introduced that nice little perk for a bit of variation. But then coming into the verse section, it's 3 8 bars, making it a total of 24. And the way I begin this is actually with the bass alongside the main melody, the clap, and the hi-hats. When then coming into the main section of the verse, I reintroduce that nice little pad we have going in the chorus alongside all the essential drums and the little perk that we had going. And then last but not least is the final 8 bar, which is what I call the pre-hook. And this is the part just before the chorus choruses again. All I do is add the bass again, add this nice little soft lead that we had going, and I only use it for the bridge section because it just sounds really good in ambient when it's all alone. Then halfway through at the 4, I introduce the kick and the clap again, just to give it a bit of a bounce just before we hit the chorus. And then we got the chorus yet again, then the verse section yet again, and last but not least, the final chorus. So there you have it, folks. Just to summarize it, it's 1 8-bar, 3 choruses and 2 verses. Of course, you could pause the video and watch how I did it and watch how I laid my stuff out. But guys, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. If you like this kind of content, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. And guys, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.